Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. We are pleased to have you all with us. My name is Sanya, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Before we begin, please feel free to share your questions in the chat throughout the webinar. We will address as many of them as possible either during the presentation or in the QA segment at the end. We are delighted to have two experienced transfer pricing professionals with us today, Priyanka Sondi and Himanshu Gautam, who will guide us through the key aspects of Malaysia's transfer pricing compliance requirements. I will now hand over the presentation to our speakers, who will begin by briefly introducing themselves. Priyanka, over to you.
Thank you, Sanya. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. I am Priyanka Sondi, a chartered accountant by profession with almost 15 years of experience in transfer pricing, and I'm a transfer pricing specialist at HEXA. So it's a pleasure to have you all with us for this session. Today, we'll be discussing one of the most significant transfer pricing developments that Malaysia has introduced in the recent year. You must be knowing the name, the Malaysia Transfer Pricing Guidelines 2024 and Malaysia Transfer Pricing Tax Audit Framework 24. So, with this, over the next 40 minutes, we will walk you through what has changed because of these new introduction that has been done in Malaysia, why these changes has been introduced, and most importantly, that what they mean from a practical perspective, like when you are managing your own transfer pricing within your organization or you are advising your client, right? So before we begin, I would like to highlight one important point here. These changes that has been introduced in 24 in Malaysia are not something business can plan for later. This is not something that we can, after everything, the year is closed, the return is filed, and then we'll sit and then we can plan for a transfer pricing. No, these changes we have to discuss, plan, and make appropriate action plan as and when these transactions has been entered into. So the Malaysia Transfer Pricing Guideline 24 apply retrospectively from year of assessment 23. This means that the taxpayer should already have been applying these requirements while preparing their contemporaneous documentation for as a year of assessment 23, 24, and also since we are sitting on July, many business are in the middle of transfer pricing reporting season. That is why this webinar is of most helpful for you if we can just discuss what all changes that we need to take care. And now, since this makes it a good time to revisit our TP policies, documentations to ensure that they are completely aligned with these latest TP Malaysia's guidelines, right, before they get finalized. So throughout the session, we'll also be sharing some practical insight, highlight the key area based on these new guidelines and the audit framework, which taxpayers should pay particular attention to. So my hope is that by end of this session, you will have a clear understanding of the changes, the practical steps you can take to strengthen your TP compliance, and to be better prepared for any future tax audit. So with this little background, let's get started. So before I jump into the what our new changes has been introduced, why and how they'll impact, first I would like to discuss couple of minutes on the background, because why these changes were introduced make the rest of the session much more easier to follow. Transfer pricing in Malaysia itself is not new. We all know. The tax authority has had the power to make TP adjustment under Section 140A of the Income Tax Act 1967 from many years. What has changed? What has changed now? So it is the way transfer pricing is being regulated now. Until recently, most taxpayers in Malaysia were following 2017 TP guideline. While those guidelines worked well at that particular point of time, but today they have not really kept pace with the latest changes that are happening in as per OECD development and the way the Island Revenue Board, IRB, are now conducting the transfer pricing audit. So because of these changes that are happening around the world, the OECD, BEPS, a major change came in Malaysia in May 2023 when Malaysia introduced the Income Tax Transfer Pricing Rule 2023. Unlike the earlier guidelines, these were the legally binding rules. They introduce formal deadlines for preparing the documentation. They introduce legal definition, what is covered in control transaction, what is arm's length range, what is arm's length price. Everything was written properly to give a way forward to the taxpayers to make sure that their transfer pricing is in compliance. So now building those rules, IRB then released in December 24 two major important documents, Transfer Pricing Guidelines 2024 and Transfer Pricing Tax Audit Framework 24, which is basically the base for which we'll be covering in our presentation today. So what are these changes? What are these updates? These update does not just explain the law. They also provide much more detailed guidance on how IRB expects taxpayer to comply. The covered areas are like documentation threshold, items to be covered in the documentation, business restructuring, transaction, how we need to be deal with them, low value add service transactions. They have even introduced a strong penalty framework if you are not taking care of your transfer pricing compliance. So with these guidelines are very important if we want to take care of our TP compliance from the perspective of our return. So the obvious question is, definitely these changes came, everything happened. So the obvious question that will come from you, every one of you, that why now? So as I told you, the answer is quite simple. Around the world, taxpayers are placing much more greater focus on transfer pricing, especially after the OECD BEPS initiative. And the good thing is that Malaysia is also strengthening its transfer pricing framework to align with the international standard and to improve the tax compliance. So for the taxpayers, whosoever has to do, maybe you may be a consultant dealing with your clients, maybe you are taking care of your own transfer pricing of your organization, two major important things that you have to keep in mind. One of them is that there is a much greater clarity on what IRB expect out of us now with these guidelines, right? We will discuss what basically they expect out of us. And the other is that there are much less flexibility when it comes to compliance. We don't have that much of flexibility that we used to have earlier. Now all the lines has been drawn by the tax authorities that within this particular time, like I can give you an example. Now there is a threshold. Now the item to be covered in the documentation, you have to maintain documentation contemporaneously within 14 days of asking. If tax authority asks you for a documentation, within 14 days we need to submit. So there is very less flexibility now. So having a robust transfer pricing documentation in place, contemporaneous, is no longer just a good practice. It is a requirement. It is becoming essential. So with that background, let's look at the new framework and the key changes introduced by the guidelines and the audit framework in 2024. First slide, Sanya, can you just go to the previous slide? Yes. So this slide, as you can see, this is basically the Malaysia TP legal framework at a glance. I would just briefly touch upon because we need to understand this framework because all these four key components, they work together. No act or rule or guidance basically work in isolation. So as the base, we have Income Tax Act 1967, Section 140A. This is a primary legal basis. This is the section in the act which basically empowers Director General of Inland Revenue to adjust a transaction that is not priced at arm's length and also to impose surcharge. So this is the base rule. Sitting above that, we have an Income Tax Transfer Pricing Rule 2023 we have just discussed, and this was the legal basis for what all documentation, contemporaneous documentation requirement, threshold, right? What do we need to maintain to make sure that the transactions are at arm's length, and this is the rules regarding the transfer pricing. Then though in between this 2023 and 24, like I would say maybe 2017 also we got some guidelines, but all those guidelines now we have a new guidelines which are basically superseding those guidelines. So then we have a TP guideline 2024, effectively retrospective from year of assessment 23. This means to be read together with these acts and rule. The 1967 Act, section 140A, and transfer pricing regulations 2023. So it does not, these guidelines which we are getting, which we'll be discussing, are not overriding them. They are interpreting them. They are explaining them. So now this is a substantial expansion. And finally, we have audit framework, which replaced the earlier framework. So now the next simple question can come in our mind, that why does this layering matters to you? Because when the client and your own tax team ask, is these guidelines are legally binding or just a guidance? The rules are binding law. Guidelines are the IRB's interpretation and expectation. An audit framework tell you how enforcement will actually happen in practice. So all three matters. We cannot see the act, rule, or guidelines in isolation. Each one of them carry a different legal weight, and that worth knowing before we build a transfer pricing defense position. So with this background, Sani, can you go to the next slide? Let's discuss the actual changes. If you can see in my on this presentation, the first genuinely useful thing that came in 2024 guideline is that it actually widens the group of taxpayer who does not need to prepare the full documentation at all. So basically here what government is doing, what authorities are doing, they are actually removing the burden from few class of taxpayers, that if you are following on these 4 criteria, you will be out of the responsibility to prepare a full documentation at all. So what are those 4 categories? First is individual not carrying on a business. Straightforward, no business transaction, no documentation required. Second is individual carrying on business, including practice, who only engage in domestic transaction. Please note that in this second category, companies are not covered. Right, so individual who are into partnership also, if you have only domestic transaction, you are not required to make the full TP document. You are not covered in that requirement. You are not eligible there. You are out of this threshold. Third is a numerical threshold. Any person means it includes everyone, individual, company, whosoever it is, whose total control transaction does not exceed 1 million. So basically they are saying, because the value of transaction is so little, that we will be keeping you out of this requirement of making a full documentation. Actually, they are just removing the burden, because the cost of compliance will be much more than the amount of transaction. So they are saying, if your value of transaction is even less than 1 million, no need to do anything. And the fourth criteria is little nuanced one, because here you need to keep all the facts and figures in your mind while you're deciding. A person who is engaged solely in domestic transaction with related party. Here also they are saying if there should be no cross-border transaction, and where both the parties does not enjoy any tax initiative, are taxed at the same rate, and have not suffered any losses from the 2 consecutive years. So the logic here is very clear. Since there is no possibility of profit shifting, no rate arbitrage is available between the 2 domestic party, nobody is claiming tax incentive, both are taxed at the same rate, they don't have losses from the last consecutive year, so they don't have the set off issue, so they cannot make the benefit of making a transfer pricing, right? So that is why the compliance burden is not proportionate to the risk. So they have just keep these 4 categories of taxpayer outside the taxpayers who are required to do the contemporaneous transfer pricing documentation. So with this explanation, but this is the point we would underline to any client relying on this exemption, that being exempted from preparing contemporaneous documentation does not mean that you are exempted from arm's length principle itself. Even though you are out of this threshold, still you need to make sure that your transaction between your related party is at arm's length. Arm's length principle needs to be met, right? So what does that mean? you still have to price those transactions correctly. You still have to retain the document that could support that the pricing if IRB ever ask you at the time of assessment, because the onus of proof in audit sits with the taxpayer regardless of any exemption status. So in practice, we encourage clients to think for this less as a no documentation reason, more as a lighter documentation. But still keep your working, your backup, your reasoning ready in case the transaction has been questioned in future by any authority. So this was about the exemption provided by the guidelines 2024. Let's move to the next slide, where I would like to tell you about the changes. Sanya, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. Apart from giving that those criterias, the second thing which has been a major change, I would say, after this guidelines 2024. So the next is, once you have seen that you are exempted and you are not exempted, and if you are not exempted, right? If you're not exempted, the next question is, do I need to prepare a full CPD or minimum CPD? So 2024 guidelines have, let's first understand the full CPT concept and then we'll come to the minimum CPT concept, right? 2024 guidelines have changed the threshold. So it's important not to assume that the same categories are applied in the previous year. Under earlier guidelines, full contemporaneous documentation was required if taxpayer had gross income exceeding 25 million and a total related party transaction. Please make a note. Total related party transaction, domestic plus cross-border exceed 15. This was earlier. So we had two criteria, 25 million gross revenue and 15 million total transaction, right? If you basically pass these threshold, then both these threshold, you were supposed to make a complete transfer contemporaneous, complete full transfer pricing documentation. Alternatively, it also applies where you have a controlled financial assistance exceeding 50 million. But now these numbers has been changed. Under 24 guidelines, this threshold has been completely changed. Now full contemporaneous documentation is required where you have a gross business income exceed 30 million instead of 25 million, which was earlier there, right? And a cross-border transaction alone. Please make a note. Earlier, total value of control transaction was taken into consideration, but now after 24 guidelines, you only need to focus on the cross-border transaction. If your cross-border transaction alone are 10 million and above, then you will be liable to make a contemporaneous TP documentation, full TP documentation. And obviously that financial assistant criteria is same as that of previous guidelines. So as we discussed, so this means some taxpayer who previously had to prepare a full CPD may now qualify for minimum, because earlier you might be crossing the threshold of 15 million because of the domestic transaction. Now you may be out because you don't have a cross-border transaction of 10 million. So all these things needs to be kept in mind while doing the compliances, TP compliances for our clients. So it is important to reassess your position every year rather than relying on last year classification. Now what? If you don't meet the threshold, you can prepare a minimum contemporaneous documentation, which is a simplified version of documentation, right? So typically, minimum contemporaneous documentation is meant for the taxpayer who has related party transaction, therefore are not exempted. You who have the related party transaction, we just discussed the 1 million threshold. You have a related party transaction of more than 1 million. So you are out of that exemption, but you don't have 10 million of transactions. So you are not even eligible for the full TPD. So what we have to do? So then in that case, you fall within minimum contemporaneous documentation, right? So I hope if you have any questions regarding this, you can ask in the chat box. We'll be happy to explain you. So with this, now we are very much clear what those exemptions mean for a taxpayer. What about these contemporaneous documentation, full documentation requirement threshold, and when we are not falling between both of them, so then we are supposed to make a minimum contemporaneous transfer pricing documentation. With this, we can definitely go to the next slide, where we will, Sane, can we go to the next slide? Difference between the two. What exactly is a minimum contemporaneous documentation and what is a full contemporaneous documentation? So now let's look at what minimum contemporaneous documentation actually include. It is much simpler than full documentation and mainly cover 4 areas which you can see on the screen. Number 1, a very high level review of the group structure. Number 2, the taxpayer organizational structure. Third, key control transaction. Please note this word key. And the fourth is that policies, the TP policies used for these transactions while entering into a transaction between the related party. So as I just said, the obvious question which you might be getting is, what does this key control transaction mean? Does it mean not all transaction, only key? So what is the definition of key? So yes, the guidelines 24 has provided the definition for the key control transaction. The transaction is considered key if it is meet either of the two conditions. Number 1, it's related to the taxpayer principal business activity. If it is not related to the taxpayer principal business activity, it is not a key transaction. Example, if you're a manufacturer and you have purchased the raw material to manufacture that product you are supposed to product, then it is a key transaction which is directly related to your operations. So then it is a key transaction. There is a second category also that has been provided, that if there is a transaction which basically not related to the principal activity, but the value of the transaction is 20% or more of the taxpayer operating revenue, then it automatically, because of the materiality of the transaction, it becomes a key. Otherwise, it will be out of this list, right? So though I would say, as a consultant, as a transfer pricing consultant, that though these conditions has been given, one point we would like to highlight here is that although detailed information is required only for key control transaction, taxpayers are still expected to list all their TP transactions. So the documentation is lighter, but the transparency requirement remains correct. So now, with this, only these 4 items in minimum, we can compare this with full contemporaneous documentation. The difference is quite significant. Full documentation, full transfer pricing documentation require much more detailed information. We can have a separate webinar altogether on what needs to be included there. But briefly, I would like to include the full TP documentation include the group information, the taxpayer business, detail of the all transaction, the benchmarking, the comparability analysis, supporting documents, intercompany agreement, disclosure of any significant business restructuring if has happened, economic changes, etc. In simple term, minimum TP documentation is a concise summary, whereas full TP documentation is a comprehensive transfer pricing file. So with that, now coming to the next slide. Let's cover 2 major important things: comparability analysis and arm's length range. These are the 2 areas where TP guidelines 2024 has introduced some important changes. So starting with the comparability analysis, the IRB now placed a great emphasis on using the reliable and verifiable comparable companies. These can be either Malaysian or a foreign comparable, but the key requirement is that a sufficient and reliable information should be available to support the analysis. The guidelines also make it very clear that if information on foreign comparable or foreign tested party cannot be properly verified, the IRB will definitely not accept it. So taxpayers should ensure that the data they are using is well supported and can be withstand scrutiny during the audit. Another important clarification is related to the use of financial data, that the OECD often allow the use of multiple year average, but in Malaysia, as per this new guidelines, generally accept the benchmarking analysis to be done based on the financial result of the relevant year of assessment. Right? So unlike OECD, where the historical data can be used, here they are saying that you need to arrive at arm's length with the data related to the relevant year. Historical financial data can be used to understand the trends, economic condition, and the comparable. So this was the change regarding comparability. There was one more change apart from the financial number. IRB also expected taxpayer to consider the quantitative filters like functions, business strategy, R&D expenses, company sizes. All these factors needs to be considered. And the same with apart from this comparability explanation, they have also changed the range. So the key change in range is basically the new range in Malaysia that needs to be applicable is 37.5 to 62.5 percentile. So many of us very familiar with intercompany range to 25 to 75%. But now in Malaysia, we have to keep in mind that our range has been different from the what basically is followed internationally, and it is less flexible. With this information, we have few important more points that we need to cover. So I would like to give it the opportunity to Himanshu to take it forward from the next topics, which has been updated in Guidelines 2024. Yes, Himanshu, you can take it.
Thank you, Priyanka. Good morning, everyone. I'm Himanshu Gautam, a transfer pricing consultant at Hexa TP with over 15 years of experience in transfer pricing. Thank you for joining today's session, and we look forward to discussing today's topic with you. Let's now look at two areas where the 2024 guidelines provide much more detailed guidance, that is business restructuring and low value added services, or LVAS. Starting with business restructuring, the 2024 guidelines are now much more closely aligned with the OECD guidelines. They require taxpayer to carefully evaluate any significant changes in the way a business operates. For example, has a contract manufacturer become a full-fledged manufacturer, or has a full-fledged distributor become a limited distributor? If the answer is yes, the transfer pricing implication of that change needs to be analyzed. The guidelines also introduce the concept of options realistically available. In simple terms, before restructuring takes place, the taxpayer should consider whether an independent party would have agreed to the same arrangement under similar circumstances, or whether it had a better alternative available. Another point is it's not enough to benchmark only the post-restructuring transaction. The restructuring itself must also satisfy the arm's length principle, and the taxpayer should maintain documentation explaining why the restructuring and its terms are commercially reasonable. Now moving to low value added services, this is one of the more tax-friendly changes in the guidelines, where the services qualify as a low value added services. The taxpayer can apply a simplified approach by charging a 5% markup on relevant cost base without carrying out a benchmarking or comparability analysis. This approach is broadly aligned with the OECD guidelines and is available for Malaysian service providers as well as foreign service providers where similar simplified approach is accepted in their jurisdiction. The guidelines also provide example of qualifying services. These are generally routine services like administrative, accounting, human resource, etc. However, services that form part of the core business activities of the group or involve valuable intangibles or risk would generally not qualify for this simplified approach. So from a practical perspective, if a group provides routine intra-group support services, it's worth assessing whether they qualify as LVAs. If they do, the taxpayer can significantly reduce the transfer pricing compliance burden by applying the simplified 5% markup instead of undertaking a full-fledged benchmarking study. Okay, we can move to next slide. Let's now move on to Transfer Pricing Tax Audit Framework 2024, and which replaces the earlier 2019 framework. One of the first changes you'll notice is that the distinction between desk audit and the field audits has been completely removed. Instead, now IRB refers to all TP examinations as comprehensive audits. These audits can be carried out at the taxpayer's premises or at IRB's offices or at any other location which is mutually agreed between both parties. Another important change is that a taxpayer may be required to submit their CTP and business presentation slides before the audit even begins within the timeline specified by IRB. So it's important that documentation is complete and readily available. The framework also clarifies the audit period. Generally, the IRB can review up to 6 years of assessment. And in certain cases, this can extend to 7 prior years, depending on the findings during the audit. Another useful clarification is audit timeline. The framework says that the TP audit should generally be completed within 450 calendar days from audit commencement date. It also clearly defines what commencement date means. It could be date of the audit notification or the first audit visit or any other date agreed between both the parties. This gives taxpayer a clear expectation for how long the audit process should take. Now, how does the IRB select cases for audit? The framework explains that tax cases are selected based on the risk assessment. This includes factors such as nature and value of controlled transactions, business restructuring, information received from third parties, including foreign tax authorities. So the transfer pricing audits are increasingly being driven by international information exchange as well. Finally, the IRB has the power to visit the taxpayer's premises with prior notice, and where necessary, it can also extend the audit to related companies. Overall, the message from the new audit framework is quite clear. The IRB is adopting a more structured, risk-based, information-driven approach for TP audits. So maintaining a robust documentation and being audit ready has become more important than ever. Okay, let's just move to next slide. Let's look at the two practical aspects of the new audit framework, that is the audit settlements and voluntary disclosures. First point relates to domestic transfer pricing adjustment. Many people assume that if IRB makes a TP adjustment to one Malaysian company, the corresponding adjustment for the other related Malaysian company will happen automatically. But that's not the case. The related party must separately apply for corresponding adjustment, and the IRB will review and assess that request before granting any relief. Okay, this was an important point. And the second point is the voluntary disclosure. If taxpayer identifies a TP issue after filing the tax return, they can still make voluntary disclosure, but it must be done before the IRB starts a TP audit. The disclosure has to be submitted using the prescribed voluntary disclosure form together with required supporting information. However, it's important to remember that the voluntary disclosure does not automatically close the matter. If the IRB believes that information provided is incomplete or requires further verification, it can still initiate an audit or issue further inquiries. So the voluntary disclosure is useful mechanism to correct the genuine issues, and it should be complete, accurate, properly supported to achieve its intended purpose. Okay, let's just move on to next slide. Next slide again. Yeah. Let's now come to one of the more important changes, the penalties for late submission for CTPD. Once the IRB issues written request for TP documentation, there is only 14 days to submit it. It's very short time, and if the documentation is not submitted within those 14 days, taxpayer may face monetary penalties, imprisonment up to 6 months, or both for each year of assessment under audit. The penalty amounts are visible on your screen. So the key takeaway here is there's only 14 days, which is simply not enough to prepare the TP documentation from scratch. Okay, next slide. Okay. Let's now look at another important aspects of penalty regime. The penalties which we discussed in the previous slides were for late submission of TP documentation, but this is different. Here we are talking about the penalty or surcharge that may apply when the IRB makes the TP adjustments during the audit. The applicable rules depend on when the transfer pricing audit commenced. For audits that commenced before the 1st January 2021, if IRB found that the income had been understated or omitted because of the TP, a penalty ranging from 15 to 45% of the tax undercharged could be imposed. However, for audits commencing on or after 1st January 2021, Malaysia introduced a different approach. Instead of imposing a penalty based on the additional slide, the IRB may impose a surcharge of 5% of the amount of the transfer pricing adjustments. Okay. Next
Himanshu, I'd
slide,
like to
please.
interrupt you for a minute as we are running short on time. So let's conclude the session for now.
Okay. Sure.
Everyone, this brings us to the end of today's session. On behalf of everyone at HexaTP, I would like to sincerely thank Priyanka and Himanshu for such an insightful session on Malaysia's transfer pricing regulations. I would also like to thank all the attendees for joining us today. Should you require any assistance with transfer pricing documentation, compliance, benchmarking, feel free to reach out to our HexaTP team. Thank you once again for your time and have a wonderful rest of the day.